Hello there. It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm back with another one of these audio breakdowns for my newest cartoon. It's called Cool Driver. I'm super proud of how this one turned out. My buddy Kellen absolutely blew the doors off with the animation. It's got Misha Mansour in it. You should go check it out. I'll put one of those little YouTube tab thingies at the top so you can click off and watch that first, because you gotta have your dessert before you eat your dinner. If you've already seen it, or you chose not to watch it because you're an asshole, welcome. I recommend putting on headphones if you got them. Other than that, let's just get right to it, and I can show you how I did the audio for this one. So this cartoon deals a lot with cars, and my first bit of advice, if you're going to do a cartoon that has to do a lot with cars, is just don't. Unless you have some way of doing your own Foley, they are the biggest pain in the ass thing that I've ever done sound effects for, hands down. Everything's got a ton of background noise. Every engine sounds different, so you can't mix and match sound effects and splice things together. They're always from different distances. They've always got kind of different... It's just a pain in the ass. Finding the sound effects for this one was so hard. Luckily, this thing kind of has music thumping over the whole thing, and I did do the music for this, but we'll get to that later. So, tip number 2 about doing a cartoon about cars is just don't keep anything organized. Just kind of like throw it mix-matched into piles and wads and make a billion tracks and don't label them. I think that also helps. So, where to start even? I guess we just start at the beginning. So we got just like car sound effects. Basically, this was just a lot of looking. With the car stuff, it's just because you can't put two on top of each other for too long, because they all have background noise because they're all outside. So this one was just like a little skid. This one was, this is like the meat of what you hear here is just all this one sound effect. Then we got some voiceover.
I am really, really cool at driving.
So very, very kind of heavily like reverby voiceover because it's all in his mind and his thoughts.
I am really, really cool at driving. And when I'm on the...
very compressed, very reverby, very kind of...
As I understand one thing about...
standard, straightforward stuff.
Thing about doing cars that nobody else does.
So this was a nice little detail that I liked that I did. Is I've got, like obviously like a blinker sort of thing here that I timed up to the animation. I made it get like a little bit louder when it zooms in. And then the last one, I actually took the sound effect and I put it on the track with the compressor and the reverb that he's been like speaking on. So the last tick kind of has like this internal like, oh, it's in his head kind of thing going on.
That nobody else does.
So it gives it like this kind of like pin droppy, like ominous sound. I don't know. I thought it was cool. It's not all that profound, but it's neat. I just have this kind of like big thumpy. For dramatic stuff, sound effects like this are super important. Just weird like risers and hits and things like that.
Traffic is a race.
So that is a lot. I found this sound effect. It was like a $10 pack that was called like anime sound effects. That is where this came from. You've probably like heard it in other things. I could have just ripped it from like a YouTube video or something, but they were selling it for $10 and it came with a bunch of other ones. And I was like, you know what? For $10, I'll pay for it. I'll support the person that made that, because it's a pretty good deal. It's a sound effect that you can't find in a lot of places. So I appreciate them making it. What is this? This is like kind of like a glass tingy bell sort of. So it kind of has this like almost kind of sounds like one leads into the other, even though they're not directly cross-faded. These two, though, this is two sound effects. And they're cross-faded into each other. This one actually kind of already had like a weird shiny noise. But I didn't like that thing at the end of it, so I kind of cut it off. And then this, that's just another like kind of cinematic hit. So it just kind of goes like... But when you combine it with this, sounds really cool. I like how that turned out. Good sounds create good soundscapes, I guess. And what's this? Oh yeah, this is all car engine-y stuff. And luckily, when you change an angle, you know, your mind kind of expects to hear different things, so there's no cohesion to what car engines these are, or what fucking... They're just a bunch of sound effects that I found that kind of captured, like, the vibe of what was going on. We could just listen to the car sound effects here. So that was like an internal, like, kind of like from the inside car sound effect. I kind of found different points in it where it kind of sort of sounded like the little movements that were going on here. That's like a car accelerating. This is probably... I'm glad that there's music pumping over this, because this doesn't really sound good on its own. This is like the biggest thing that I'm like, I really couldn't find anything for that. With car engine sounds, you can't exactly loop them or cut them with anything or anything like that. So I kind of wanted something that sped up and went like brrrr, but I couldn't get that. So I kind of grabbed this, stretched it out. And it sounds a little weird. I think it helps the effect that it sounds a little bit weird, but it definitely doesn't sound real. But behind the music, like, it's fine. It's supposed to sound a little bit awkward and dinky, and I think it does that. But that like 36 down to 35, that was actually a last minute change, because that joke kind of didn't read super well until we did that, and I think that kind of helped it. Originally, he just sped up to 35 and it just stayed there. But we kind of had it go to 36 and then like drop down, so it's like, what? But I think it works fine. It just kind of didn't turn out how I envisioned it. That's the only thing in this cartoon that didn't, though.
And I'm gonna win!
Oh yeah, I've got these sound effects. That is like a leather... I think they're both leather sounds, actually. Yeah, they're both kind of leather sounds. Leather sounds are a good sort of go-to Foley for general shit moving around or tightening or whatever. It's a very good kind of all-purpose sound Foley thing. So those are both kind of leathery sound effects, but, you know, they sound good in the context. Like, even if you just put them together with, like, the internal car sounds. Like, they sound like what they're supposed to, especially when you're looking at something.
What is this guy doing? Dude!
Oh, yeah, everything kind of, like, cuts out here. I put the music...
What is this?
Through a little bit of a EQ thing. I just kind of, like, distorted it a little bit and cut the highs and lows, and just kind of boosted some frequencies that I thought sounded a little bit annoying, so that it just kind of sounded dinky and weird.
What is this guy?
No, that's Misha's voice. That doesn't sound dinky and weird. So, like, without that, that kind of sounds like... But I just kind of did this. So with the distortion, that's very subtle. And then the EQ. So it kind of hits way harder when it comes back in like that.
What is this guy doing? Dude, either pass me or don't.
I call this expression bad driver face, by the way.
No! Victory is the only option! I need to drive further beyond!
Yeah, so that was a cool sound effect, that like
I need to drive
whoosh.
further beyond!
Zoom in. Let me see if I can grab that. That's a few things. So there's like this cinematic whoosh. There is this. That came from the anime pack too. I kind of combined those two things. So, and then there's like a flag flapping around sound somewhere in here. I think that's what this is. Yeah. There's just like a cool little flag flapping around. I should have run that through a reverb, but I don't know if it would have been worth it to create another track of reverb for something you barely fucking hear anyway.
I'm further beyond!
Yeah, it really gets lost in there. So reverb does kind of also have the tendency to blend things in. I'm just making excuses for being lazy at this point, though. It probably objectively would have sounded better with that on it. Let's see. Okay, so that's like a knuckle cracking sound. I did put another leather tightening sound effect on that, so it kind of just sounds a little bit more. Another leather thing for the foot. I think this is like a kind of air being let out of something sort of sound. Yeah, like it's like an air pump, which kind of gave it like a breaky sort of sound. I think it worked. Okay, and then we got like a big snarly, like I specifically went for like a truck engine for that because I wanted it to sound like big and ominous and shit. Mood.
That was my turn. I had to turn there, you dick! Were you not hugged as a fucking child? Oh, I fucking hate you, you stupid fuck!
This is the...
So, first things first, this part where Misha goes, "Oh, I fucking hate you!" That makes me laugh every single time, no matter how many times I fucking see it. This just kind of had a little bit of I just kind of put like a high shelf on it and just kind of like got rid of a bunch of the high frequencies so he just sounds like he's in a vehicle. I didn't want to do too much to it. I had like a more real sounding effect on it for a while, but you kind of lost a little bit of the clarity, so I thought that would be a little bit funnier if you could just hear what he was saying better.
That was my turn. I had to turn there, you dick! Were you not hugged as a fucking child? Oh, I fucking hate you, you stupid fuck!
Yeah, so, you know, some fade ins and outs just to give it that effect when he drives away. There's like the little stop. Some car sounds. We got this. This is like two car sounds that I kind of dropped down, put next to each other. But it's a lot of compounding background noise because of that. But they're stopped at a light, so car doesn't really need to be that audible. That was just a good sound effect. That's all that was. That wasn't me.
Child, oh, I fucking hate you, you stupid fuck!
This is the greatest victory I've ever achieved! I am a big...
So, yeah, there's a lot of little sound effects here. I kind of learned probably since the last time I made one of these. If you're listening to what this guy's saying, and that's the main focus, these sound effects should be almost inaudible. They should just be there so that your brain doesn't notice that something is missing. Like, they are almost complete, like, you barely hear any of them.
I've ever achieved! I am a big...
Like, there's a little, like, bump when he leans forward, but, like, it's...
I've ever achieved! I am a big boy champion, and I deserve a big boy trophy!
Yeah, so he takes out the baby teeth. That sound, I think I pitched up. That's another thing, is if you find like a sound effect that sounds either too big or too little, you can try pitching it up or down. And sometimes it'll be exactly what you're looking for. It will distort it, so it'll sound a little less real. So you probably shouldn't pitch it like a full octave or something, but that one I pitched like, let's see how much I actually did pitch it. Okay, I almost did pitch it a full octave. But do as I say, not as I do, all right? It sounds fine. There's also a little bit of like internal car ambience, but it's not much. That was something that I even debated putting in at all, because sometimes if you cut the ambience completely, you can kind of create like a tension build or like a pause for laughs or something like that. But I ultimately decided it was better with it in there. I put it in there and I liked it more, so I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll leave it.
I am a big boy champion, and I deserve a big boy trophy.
Oh yeah, there's like, originally this was gonna have kind of like a SpongeBob like riser kind of like ew gross out shot noise, but it just made it sound like too corny, but it felt weird alone. So I put it in really, really low, but you barely can hear it. Your brain will pick up on it, but it's very, very low. And there's like there's one of those in there too, but it's very, very quiet.
Boy trophy. A yummy little morsel for my urethra.
There's like an implied movement sound effect there. Like, I don't know if you caught that. Because there's not a shot of him pouring the tooth out into his hand, which I don't think it needed one, but just put that little sound effect in there to imply that something happened between this shot and this shot.
A yummy little morsel for my urethra.
There's another one where very, very quiet sound effects. Some clothing rustling noises, which are good for, things moving.
Urethra.
That's another leather one. That's another like leather stretchy kind of thing. I don't know what the hell this was, but it sounds good. Yeah, it's just it might be more leather. I think it is. I regret to inform you that sound was made with my mouth. That's just me going. That's another one of also my mouth. That is disgusting. That's two sound effects I made with my mouth being gross together. Yeah, it's not pleasant for everybody, but it's not supposed to be pleasant. He's putting a tooth in his pee hole because I wasn't raised right, if we're being real.
I'm so fucking cool at driving.
That sound where he's rattling around his hand, that's teeth chattering. It's like someone like chattering their teeth because they're cold. Sometimes you just gotta think about what sounds like something else.
Cool.
Little like slimy chicken slime sounds when he's weird, very low down. You can't really hear him, but
cool at driving.
This was an interesting one. So that was actually me pounding on my desk. And this is actually a track that's run through a compressor. And that was just something I tried and it sounded better. So I was like, okay, I'll just compress him pounding on, because a dashboard of a car is a very hollow thing, so it would kind of have a more boxy like compressed sound. I think this was like me bumping something. This is actually like on the tail end of the sound effect, and I just kind of. So that's just me pounding on my desk, but I ran it through the track with the compressor on it, just because it kind of worked. What is this back here? Oh, that's that horrible thing again. All right. Yeah, so this track does not have a compressor, and this one does. So when it zooms back out of the car, that's kind of what it naturally sounded like. Yeah, so I just kind of compressed it a little bit and then took it off the compressor when it pulls out. And yeah, same sound effect, just differently utilized. This was a bit of a happy accident. This track here, I put on the compressor by accident, and it's just cars honking. But putting it on the compressor kind of made it more blary and annoying. And just for the vibe of this zoom out shot where, you know, it's like these cars just fucking screaming at them like, fucking go! It kind of sounded better than like the nuanced sort of no compressor, no anything kind of thing. So like, here is it with the compressor. Let me go a little bit back so you get the vibe.
Bullet driving!
And here it is without it. I don't know. I think it's better with everything just blary and boxy and shit. That was a complete accident, but I like the way it sounded on there, so I just kind of left it. Same goes for this. I panned it to the right just a little bit so that it had like a little sense of depth. And then this sound effect that's part of the dick insertion sound effect ended up on that track as well. And again, it was a case of I moved it and it didn't sound as good, so I put it back. You know, Bob Ross once said something like, I have a cool afro or some shit, and I fucked up, and that's a good thing, or I don't know, something about a happy accident and having a kid. So yeah, that is the sound effects portion. And now we can talk about the music, because I did all the music for this cartoon, which is something I'd like to do more often. The last time I did that was back in the old rip snorting days. And it was fun. I like doing it, but it is a lot of work and a lot of, I don't know if I'd call it stress. It's just kind of, it's another X factor that it's like, oh, I've got to really nail this. But in this case, I'm pretty happy with how I did. So here we are in Cubase. And from the very start, this video was very music driven. A lot of you who know your anime deep cuts noticed that the whole thing is kind of a big homage to Redline. So I actually used the music from the opening scene of Redline for a temp track. And what that means is like, I basically just took copyrighted music that I don't own and gave that off to Kellen so she could get started on the video, with the intent of replacing it later with something with the same BPM or whatever. But I couldn't find anything on any like royalty-free site that really replaced it. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And this is what I made. I straight up like dragged the audio of the cartoon, the scratch audio, into the Cubase file here. So I was timing this whole thing like to the cartoon, which I think is really nice because it makes everything kind of fit perfectly. So I just straight up like had this going like over like,
It's a race. And I'm gonna win!
like it's just over the audio. So I have one version of it here with no music, and I have one version of it here with the scratch track. By the way, you heard me make a sound with my mouth there.
It's a race.
That's just a placeholder. Sometimes you time the animation to the sound, sometimes you time the sounds to the animation. Just kind of depends where you want the pacing to come from. So the temp track that was in there was from the first scene of Redline. It's called Yellow Line. And kind of the core of it is this very kind of like synthetic, straightforward sounding like kick snare combo. So getting that right was the big thing that I kind of wanted to keep consistent. But all the VST stuff that I have that I've bought for myself, it's pretty much all, you know, either it's supposed to be real sounding heavy metal drums or it's orchestral stuff. So it's like orchestral drums and stuff like that. I don't really have many like electronica drums. So I just used like the basic Cubase built-in Groove Agent fucking synth drums. And I used a bunch of different kits. I'm sure that you can mix and match them, but I just never bothered to figure out how to do that. So I found this kick that I liked. You know, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of like a dirty like kick that's not totally atonal. It's got a little bit of like a note personality to it. I kind of liked it. And this I just didn't fuck with at all. This I was like, all right, let's kind of keep it. The snare was trickier. The Redline track has this really distinctive, it's almost like a punch, like a so I found one that I kind of thought was like cool sounding. And then I literally took like a Looney Tunes punch sound effect that sounds like this, and I pitched it down. And when you put those two things together, you get this nice. So the kick snare kind of came together with that. Had a very like. So the whole track is kind of built around that. I got some cymbals here too. That's also a different kit, but. Side note, if you don't know, Misha is a guitarist in the band Periphery. He's one of the spearheads of this kind of like bedroom producer sort of movement. And and he gave me, he was like, dude, you want any like GGD stuff, which is like his, you know, they do sort of VSTs and shit. So he gave me some like Get Good Drum libraries. And I haven't installed them yet, and I'm using fucking Groove Agent. And I made him drive like a Suburban, so it's just disrespect all around. Misha's a great producer, though. If this channel is too baby mode for you, he's got a lot of mixing tutorials and stuff like that are a little more high level, where the guy actually knows what he's fucking talking about. In my defense, the Redline track doesn't sound... The drums in that thing do not sound super real. They are not really realistic drums. I was just going for accuracy. That's my excuse. So next thing I did was I kind of laid down some bass. So that's the part where it kind of gets awkward. And I was able to kind of like bake that into the track because I was working off the audio for the cartoon, which is super cool. I love playing bass, man. I'm not good at it, but like... Like that shit is funky. Like in a hypothetical full-length version of this track, that'd be in there. I really like that. But yeah, I also, for the bass, I didn't do much to it. I put some EQ on it, where I just kind of cut down some frequencies that were getting a little out of hand. Like you can kind of see here, like this shit. Like if I turn it off, it's just fucking nasty. But I cleaned it up a good amount. You know, I just kind of scanned around for frequencies that were just getting crazy, and then just put these little spikes into them. And then I put a side chain on it to the kick, which I'm just realizing right now is bypassed. I fucking hope to God, because full disclosure, I came in here and color coded these for this video for your guys' sake. I didn't have these color coded when I did it, so that might have been when that got turned off. I am really hoping that on the fucking track itself that was not bypassed. That is going to bother me for the rest of my life. But what a sidechain does, in theory, is when the kick hits, the bass will kind of drop out. So like, you see how it kind of like when the kick hits, the bass kind of like backs off? If it's not on, it's just kind of a lot, right? So it just kind of helps them not compete for like the same frequencies. Jesus Christ, that is actually going to bother me forever if that's not on there. I am so stupid. Holy shit. Also, that totally distracted me here, and I turned the bass up so it was easier to hear it, and I never turn it back down. So just keep in mind that it's going to be a little bit louder than it is in the final mix whenever you hear it. And then there's the guitars, obviously. With rhythm guitars, especially in like rock and metal music, I don't know if you do it for like acoustic guitar and stuff like that. You record it twice, almost exactly the same, as the same as you can get it with your imperfect human hands, and you put one hard left and one hard right, and they sound big and crunchy. That actually has a mistake in it, but I thought it sounded cool, so I left it. They kind of break sync there, but I don't know. I like it, so kept it. Fuck it. Oh yeah, the guitar tone. That was one that I kind of had lying around, and I tried my normal guitar tones, and they just kind of didn't fit with what I was going for here. But that tone was it's a dual rectifier, but I was trying to kind of create like a Framus Cobra, because I have the Axe effects. So I read on some forum that like, oh yeah, like the Framus Cobra is basically just, it's the dual rectifier with a different tone stack, and this amp has this kind of tone stack. So it's like a Carvin Legacy tone stack in a dual rectifier is what it's kind of like simulating. And I don't think it really ended up sounding like what I wanted out of it, but I kind of saved it anyway. And for some reason, it just kind of fit this mix. And I think it sounds kind of cool in here, so. I mean, on the guitars, just kind of same deal as the bass. I just kind of had a tone that I liked, and I just kind of tamed it a little bit in the mix. This is a little bit Frankenstein, just because I was kind of figuring it out as I was recording it. This is a sick riff. And it does just kind of cut off there, because that's where the cartoon stops. So then I have like these synths. I have this guy, which is kind of like a lead synth. So I got that. I've got this one, and it's very low, but it just kind of adds texture. Like, in the context of the whole thing, you can barely fucking hear that. But I don't know. It does add some texture. Like, if that's not there. It does fucking slam, but it doesn't kind of have the same vibe. see if there's anything else to... Oh, yeah, this electric snare sound. That just kind of comes in to, like, emphasize some stuff, like in the... That was another thing that I tried to get to sound a lot like the OG track.
I'm gonna win!
Yeah, so... That's in there. Is there anything else? Oh, yeah! This little guy. I don't know why it's labeled snare, but, there's this thing. This is just a pad that I found, and it's nothing special. But what is cool about it is because I was dragging the scratch track in here, I could kind of time it.
I am really,
with
really cool
what he
at
says.
driving. And when I'm on the road, you'll know how cool I can be. Because I understand one thing about doing cars that nobody...
So I just kind of got to sculpt that ambience sort of synth sound around what he was saying. A little bit of trial and error, but I think I got it sounding cool. Oh yeah, I did sidechain the guitars to the snare a little bit. It's a very like subtle sidechain. It's not like a full-blown sidechain, but it dips it a little bit. Just to kind of give the snare a little bit of room, but not as much as I did for the kick on the bass. And yeah, that's kind of the track there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you didn't, I keep trying to warn you at the end of these that you can't unwatch them. That's not possible. But, you know, if you sat through it anyway, thank you. You're a trooper, and I don't know why you do the things you do, but I appreciate you. Anyway, Sounds Goodish has returned. And if you want to go rewatch the cartoon now, maybe you'll recognize a new level of depth or just rank amateurism at play. Until next time.